It's not blind chance. In fact, a true miracle, given the number of potential universes, the true miracle would be that no life ever evolved anywhere. That would need an explanation. The fact that life evolved is incredible, but we are incredibly lucky. If you buy a lottery ticket and you win against stupendous odds, are you going to say, wait a minute, the odds were too great, I cannot have won this lottery? Are you going to say that, or are you going to take the money? Right? Obviously, somebody's going to win that lottery, and it just seems like a miracle when it happens to you. Well, we have won a cosmic lottery here. Billions and billions and billions of other potential universes are stillborn. They are dead. There was no gravitational attraction for whatever under these scenarios. So your fine-tuning argument doesn't hold water. Anthony Flew, by the way, did not convert to theism. Theism is a belief in a personal God. If you read his works, he converted at most to a weak form of deism, an initial force. He does not believe in miracles. He doesn't believe in revelation. He does not believe in Jesus. He did not believe in any of the gods that any of us believe in this room. Anthony Flew is not a theist by even the widest stretch of the imagination, although he did concede scientifically, based on some of the bad arguments, which scientists are now clearing up, about the fine-tuning of the initial constants. And during my second rebuttal, I will address more of George's opening remarks.
Thanks, Dan, for his comments. I invite Cardinal Pell to take the floor in some further rebuttal.
Well, I've got Anthony Flu's book here, and you can see the title of it. And it's got originally "Why There Is No God," and he's crossed out the "no," and then he's put "Why There Is a God." He is certainly a theist. He certainly doesn't believe in life after death, at least in this book he doesn't. There is a postscript by Tom Wright, the Anglican Bishop of Durham, putting out the Christian side of things, which really doesn't exist, but Flew certainly is a theist, not in a full Christian sense. The last time I was speaking to Paul Davies, he certainly didn't believe in multiple universes. Now he might have changed his mind just recently, but of course there is not a skerrick of evidence for multiple universes. And even if there was, it wouldn't make the atheist problem any less. Matter of fact, if there were other worlds, and Christians believe in another supernatural, spiritual world of angels and things like that, if there were other worlds, it magnifies the atheist problem, because all the problems they have as they fail to explain this universe, are multiplied for every other universe that exists. That's no sort of answer whatsoever. Dan believes that life is like winning a lottery. In other words, exactly as I said, he believes in chance. And he said we're very lucky. We are, especially those of us who live in Australia. But let me just repeat what the odds are. One chance of the moving from amino acids to life, not from nothing to something, from amino acids to life, is one chance in 10 to the power of 40,000. Unimaginable number. Some have suggested that it could have come about by chance, and so what chance is there that 6 chimpanzees on typewriters might produce a Shakespearean sonnet? Somebody got 6 chimpanzees together and they batted away for 6 months and they never produced one word. They couldn't even get an "ah," that is an A with a gap before and a gap afterwards. Our world exists. It requires an intelligence. We have that intelligence. It's quite unworthy to bail out and say that there is no answer, and to slip from saying there is no God and over to the slightly easier position saying, well, we're not quite sure, or putting forward the bizarre theory that life is the result of winning a lottery.
Thanks, Cardinal, for his comments, and invite Dan to take the floor with some further rebuttal.
Of course, if there is a God who created all of this, he has an intelligence that is functioning in a finely tuned way. This God has purpose, has a direction, has some functionality to its brain and its mind, has desires, has wants, has needs to create things. However you define this God, it is not a simple thing. It is an incredibly complex being. What George has done is he's trying to explain complexity with more complexity. If you answer one mystery with another mystery, you've answered nothing. You simply delayed the question. Even a child knows to ask, well, if God made everything, who made God? And to simply posit that God, by definition, has his own self-explanation, is to beg the question. You need to give us some kind of an evidence for this being before you posit it as a self-existing being. Paul Davies and I were co-presenters at a conference in 2004, that was 6 years ago, during which Paul Davies said that some form of a limited multiverse is most likely. He has changed his mind, you are right. He was opposed to multiverse, but more and more scientists now are agreeing that the existence of the dark matter, for example, is more logically explained by a multiverse scenario of some sort. And if we can find good models, in fact, two completely different approaches to coming up with a measurement for the probabilities, because you know, the only way to compute a probability is by dividing one number by another. So where do you get those numbers, right? How do you know that those constants could have been different from what they are, and by how much? How do you know that unless you have some sense of probabilities? Two completely different scientific approaches to trying to assess that have come exactly at this, converge at the exact same amount of existence of dark matter that needs an explanation in the universe. Therefore, the hypothesis, and it is a hypothesis, I admit, of multiverses, is mathematically supported as opposed to the hypothesis, and George admits that God is a hypothesis, of this super complex being up there who doesn't need an explanation for its complexity, although we do. If you're going to pick one hypothesis over another, which one is more simple? Which one makes more sense? You use that number 10 to the 40,000th power. Yes, that's kind of true. Hoyle talked about that, but he was talking about one particular amino acid using one shake of the box. If you had a bunch of random elements and you shook the box once, what are the odds that they would form into that one amino acid? They are extremely high. But 10 to the 40,000th power, which is unimaginably large. But what if there are 10 to the 50,000th power possible multiverses? Then you would expect some of that. In fact, mathematically, it would be a miracle if that amino acid did not form. The problem we have is our failure to imagine the law of large numbers. We evolved thinking in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 100,000s. But if the universe is unimaginably large, then of course, someone's going to win that lottery more than once. Is that the final time, or is one more minute? Okay. By the way, if monotheism was a great improvement over polytheism, what's the next logical improvement? George makes another assumption in his remarks that that which is mental is non-physical. I don't think anyone supports that claim. I think believers might support that claim. A mental activity is a physical activity. It is a description of a function. Thoughts are not things, they are functions. It'd be like me saying digestion is a thing. Digestion is just a label for the function of an organ. Thoughts and mental processes are labels, it's a label for functioning of an organ. You cannot have thoughts without some kind of an organ functioning. If the stomach disappears, digestion disappears. If the brain dies, our thoughts die. Mental activity is not immaterial.